Welcome back to the next episode of the Merge Feast. I'm Blake, and Logan is here with me this week, but unfortunately, Brandon is under the weather. He should hopefully be back next week. Episode 3 is in the books, and what a doozy this one was. Logan, what was your first reactions?
This week, I absolutely loved again. I think the change of pace from like last week was all, not all, but a majority of it was strategic talk, kind of getting the alliances, kind of laying that out. Where this week still had some of that, but having the reward challenge and kind of just a different style of episode. I really enjoyed. Having the reward challenges, I always like having more than one in an episode, like more than one challenge in an episode. Um, I think there was a lot of things that stood out from a couple different players, from finding the immunity or the not immunity challenge, the
The idol?
yeah, the idol. Sorry, to the twist to that to um, yeah, just a lot of different things in the episode. What did you think?
I mean, the same. There were a handful of things that I said last week, like having the reward challenge. Having that back felt like a lot of fun. It took me on a roller coaster ride because, man, I was really hoping that this week would be Lulu's week, and you start out um, kind of on a high from last week, feeling like, okay, they are where they need to be. And I don't know if you caught right at the beginning where Sabaya gave back the shot in the dark. And I know we kind of wondered that when we were talking last week, if they would show that or if that would be something that Sabaya kept from Emily. But it really felt like at the beginning of the episode, like, man, this is where that tribe needs to be. They're in a great place. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but in that reward challenge, I mean, they crushed it. And we can dive into that a little deeper here in a minute. But and from that to, I mean, it was some highs and some lows, and it was a good episode. Kept me on my toes.
Yeah. Kind of stemming from last week, we kind of mentioned at the very end of the episode last week when votes were being read off and Jeff read just a couple votes and Emily kind of gave a look. We kind of mentioned something like, I think she caught that. She brought that up. I think Sabaya ended up kind of lying to her and saying, "No, I voted," and kind of tried to hide that. But Emily very much realized that and was like aware of that.
Well,
Um,
she flat out asked Sabaya, "Did you vote?" And I thought that was odd, and maybe she asked everybody that, and production just cut those parts out of it. But I thought it was very astute that Emily, however she did, figured out that it was Sabaya's vote that they didn't read, and or that there wasn't a vote in there for her to call her out like that. I was pretty impressed.
yeah, it. I think she's going to be a fairly strong player. I'll be interested as it goes on if she can keep her cool and kind of continue to work on those and continue to grow. But I think she could be a really strong player.
For sure. And I think I was a little worried last week because the first week I was really down on Emily. Last week I was really high on Emily, and I learned to really like her. And so I thought, okay, is this just a phase of is she just putting on a good act for a couple days? But it really seemed like this week she really turned it around, and I kind of getting to see the real her, um, and not kind of that front that she puts up at first. So I'm still really enjoying Emily, but um, last week when they showed highlights for this week, we had a couple theories about Jake when it showed him kind of falling into the fire. Um, and wasn't a ton of talk around that, but he definitely like somewhat passed out. It almost looked like to me it was a bit of smoke. I'm sure some dehydration and hunger played into that, but also hyperventilating. I know anytime you're like blowing on a fire or blowing up a balloon or anything like that, you can get kind of lightheaded and dizzy. And I think it seemed like that's all it was, but it kind of led to a cool moment with Jake and Kendra. Um, and I think it really showed the importance of talking game with everyone because they were both like, we kind of made assumptions of each other before we ever really talked to each other about game. And, uh, and not that they had to worry about it because they didn't go to tribal, but that made them feel a heck of a lot better about Jake. It made the girls feel better about Jake. And, they're getting closer and closer to being ready to vote out Bruce when the time comes, which I thought was kind of a cool moment to showcase.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that there wasn't any injury or anything that came from that. I honestly, like you said, I think it was a combination of smoke to the like hyperventilating of just blowing the air out constantly and not like taking a breath and like relaxing to dehydration to not having a ton of food. But very glad that no injury came to him or anything. I think the alliance from Jake and Kendra or them talking can be very beneficial for not just Jake but all of them. When you look at the Bellow tribe, obviously they haven't been to tribal council, haven't had to kind of go against each other, but you can very clearly see where some of that alliance is starting to form. Obviously, the girls are fairly kind of in an alliance so far, and then the guys, but I think Bruce is on the outside. A lot of them maybe find him a little of annoying. And then Brando is like last week we had talked about he kind of was joining in on the girls' fun with putting the buff around him and a couple different things like that. But kind of a weird tribe dynamic there. But I think them talking will be a positive down the road. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is an interesting tribe dynamic, but there hasn't been a ton of focus on it. I mean, they're kind of the really the uninteresting tribe with what all they've got going on. Um, and I'll hop over to Bello or to Reba here in a minute, but um, it, this is where, and this is jumping way ahead, but this is where things get interesting in Survivor, is because we see in. Did you watch the scenes for next episode?
I did.
Okay. So they talk about switching up tribes, which I knew had to be coming with Lulu going down to only three people. There's no way they were going to let three people sit out of each challenge from each tribe going forward. So I figured that was going to happen if Lulu lost, but it I'm excited to see where everybody lands, and this is going to mix it up, and it's almost like starting the game over again because it's not the merge. They're probably just going down to two tribes instead of three. So you're almost like you're starting the game over again with just some relationships already intact.
Yeah. And like what you had said, the Bello tribe is kind of almost lackluster and not a lot going on there. Is aren't they? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anybody on that team has even looked for an idol. Maybe they looked, but nobody's found any idol or any clues or anything like that yet, have they?
I don't think anybody has even looked. I don't remember them showing anybody looking, which is odd. But maybe they're not looking, or maybe they just haven't showed it yet. I don't know. It it is strange that they haven't showed anyone looking, because I think we all agreed, was it last week, where really the only right answer on how to look for an idol is to just look for an idol,
Hmm.
regardless of how you do it. And so the fact that they're not, I mean, they're clearly winning and doing well, so it's working. But man, I I'm curious, um, but yeah, I mean, Reba was probably the most interesting part of the show this episode, I thought, because with it was who's the alliance? It's Drew, D, Austin, and what's the other girl's name? Julie.
Yeah, Mama Julie.
Yeah, which I like them. It does not seem like there's a ton of trust yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was it Drew or D that fought Drew. What'd you think about all that?
Yeah, and that was at last week at the like scenes from our next episode where it looked like Drew kind of got in some hot water. Um, Drew and Austin obviously came together. They're working together, trying to find the next part of the clue of that immunity idol, and they're going out digging at the tree, trying to find that. Um, had the game plan of, hey, one's gonna dig, one's gonna kind of keep watch. If you see somebody coming, talk about an upcoming reward of food of something. That's gonna be our cop out. Um, it showed Austin walking down the path one way, and here comes D, and I think Mama Julie was with her.
Yeah.
Um, coming walking up, I was like, "What is Drew digging for?" Caught him red-handed. He played it off as, "Oh, we saw seafood digging over here, so we were kind of checking it out." I don't think they bought that.
I don't think they bought it either, but I thought that was really quick thinking. And yeah, I mean, again, because he got up and like walked the wrong direction, it was a little awkward, and I don't think they believed it. But Drew's quick on his feet. That was a good story to make up right there.
Yeah, it trying to come up with something there. I don't know if he thought of that beforehand, if it was on the fly, what that looked like, but a very good lie to kind of like, hey, we're just trying to figure out what's going on. But later in the show, they all go back to like, okay, we've got to find this. They end up telling each other about it. We've got to find this. Go back and are working in that together. So I thought that kind of dynamic group together was kind of cool. That might be jumping ahead a little bit too much, but um,
Yeah, I mean, we can go ahead and finish talking about that because I think D is incredibly smart and super aware. I feel like she's really good at reading people. Um, and just a couple things she said have been pretty spot on without her actually knowing. And I've been very impressed with D. Also, I feel like when you catch somebody like that, there have been times that people have just written them off and like, nope, they're a threat. We need to get them out, and we're going against our alliance right away. But she kind of didn't do that, and they kind of led us to believe that as they were searching for the idol, because was it her, Dee, and Julie, where they were digging and found the rope, and then I thought, no way, they're gonna get this and hide it from the guys.
I thought the same thing.
And sure enough, they didn't. And that may have been because was it Jay Maya that kind of stumbled across them?
Hmm. Yeah,
And
she was walking up and they, all right, we got to go get this to Austin as quick as we can so we don't get caught with this and can kind of duck out of there.
so I'd be curious to know if they were going to tell them if they weren't caught by Jay Maya, but I mean, they did, and it worked out, and he ended up, Austin shared everything with them, even though they weren't there with him and Drew when they broke the rock open. I also thought it was interesting that they did not have the same things, like the thing in the wax, because we last week we all thought that they would all have the wax, um, but they clearly didn't. So maybe production is just like that evil to think like, okay, we're gonna give the wax one to the tribe that doesn't have any fire.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that, but also could it be that, okay, one tribe found this immunity idol, one tribe did as well. Bello hasn't yet. Clearly, next week we saw that they're kind of joining into two groups. Going to be two different tribes. We don't know what beaches they're going to be at yet, but are they going to go to one going to go to the Bello tribe beach and one go to say the Reba or the Lulu, and the people that were at Lulu or Reba be like, hey, there wasn't an immunity idol found here. Let's go look for it, and then expect to find the kind of the same thing, and it be a little bit different, or what is that going to look like? You know?
For sure. And again, this is jumping way ahead, but with Sabaya getting voted out this week, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but there's going to be another idol or some sort of an advantage in play because of how all that went down. So I don't know. I really like the alliance there of Drew, Austin, D, and Julie. Hopefully they all stay together, and if not, hopefully they all can survive to the merge because I like them together, and I think the four of them could go really far.
Absolutely. Yeah. Other than that, up until the reward challenge, I think I didn't really have much else.
Yeah, at first they like went to um, the challenge really quickly, and I was like, "What the heck?" Did that either went really fast or doing a reward challenge? And sure enough, reward challenge. I'm like, yes, it's back.
Yeah, I like I said at the beginning, I absolutely love having more than one challenge, whether it be obviously reward versus immunity. Um, I think the rewards are always fun to see the reactions of what they're getting and all of that, to the simpleness of fruit and them not eating, to once the tribe won, they were like, I forgot what a grape tasted like. Like those things you don't really think about for not that you haven't eaten for 7 days or something, like the just the sheer joy and everybody's reactions of seeing a little bit of fruit. Um, I thought the reward challenge was something similar that we had seen before, of like tossing the ball up and having to go through the obstacle course and catching it, and then going on and kind of tossing the rings on. I think we've seen that in previous seasons, but not a overly difficult challenge, but still challenging enough. Lulu came out on top on that one, and I think Emily dropped the ball once, but after that, it was they were done. Like, it was quick, and I was super happy for them. I was like, all right, this is what they needed to kind of get going forward and get out of the slump that they were in. They're gonna get some fuel, and I was super happy for them. And then it was Reba that won,
Yeah, Reba
or
won the smaller fruit plate.
yeah, Reba won the smaller fruit plate, and then an additional twist: the first finisher was able to select one person from their tribe, and they were able to go to either the other two camps and raid their camp and kind of visit, see the alliances, and talk to people and see how everything was flowing over at those camps. So I thought that was kind of a cool twist. I think they've done something similar to that before, but I always like seeing that in the game.
Yeah, I do too. So Caleb got selected from Lulu to do that. They all chose him, or I guess he kind of volunteered, but they all agreed. And so he went and raided Reba, the Red Tribe, right?
Yeah,
But when he got to the boat, they gave Caleb an advantage to give to someone at Reba. I thought, which I thought was cool because it added another layer. Instead of just going and ransacking their camp and taking all their stuff and creating enemies, you now have the chance to build a relationship outside of your tribe. Um, so that goodwill advantage, basically, it was if if you don't have a vote, it gives you your vote back, right?
For one tribal council.
Okay, for one trouble. Okay, makes sense. So when he got there, he ended up, after talking to everybody, he ended up giving that to Drew, which I loved because I'm high on Drew right now. I think game recognizes game, and Caleb is playing super strong. Realized that Drew is a player as well, and gave that to them, and that just set up Reba and that alliance that we were just talking about to kind of be a powerhouse.
I like you said, I do like that they had that advantage for him to do rather than just going and raiding the beach and kind of causing it like creating enemies and all of that. It gave a sense of we want you to go and have that social game and try and come up with something to create an alliance there while you're there or actually have a reason to talk to people rather than just like, oh, like, hey, how's it going? All right, I'm gonna take this. See ya. Um, but like you said, game recognizes game. Drew's playing strong, and going back to them finding the or searching for that immunity. It kind of gave Drew and Austin a little out of, hey, let's kind of try and rebuild this trust again of telling them, hey, he gave us this. Austin doesn't have a vote. He gave us this. We're trying to be upfront and trying to rebuild some trust there. So I think it worked out in everybody's favor there. Um,
Yeah, I thought that was really brilliant too. Instead of being like, "Oh gosh, we got caught. We can't tell them anything." Like, I thought it was brilliant to rebuild that trust.
yeah, I think Caleb needs to be cautious about the way he's perceived. Obviously, he's playing a great game so far, but almost everybody on the Reba tribe, other than like Drew, obviously he kind of an alliance there, but D, Julie, a couple other, I don't know if it was J Maya or who, but they were all like, Caleb is a really good player. He's salesman. He knows how to talk. He's got that charm about him. He's obviously physical. He does well in challenges. He's a really good player. We need to watch out for him.
Yep.
So I think that come next week with the whole switching of tribes will be interesting to see who lands on what tribe and how that kind of flows and what new alliances form and all. But I think he needs to be a little cautious there. And I think towards the end of this episode, he maybe got a little sense of that. So hopefully that is a positive thing there.
Yeah, I agree. It's a fine line of playing a really good game and not letting people see it, but also letting people see it enough to where when you're sitting there at the end, you're able to speak to it and people will vote for you, but not being so much of a threat that they want to vote you out because they don't want you to sit at the end next to them. And so I do worry that Caleb's playing a little too hard, but um, like you said, after tribal this week, I hope he gets a sense of that and kind of, reins that in a little bit. So we'll see.
Yeah. After he leaves, I think we had already kind of touched on that, but he leaves. Drew and them all come together. Hey, this is what he gave us. They all come up with a plan to go look for the idol. They end up finding the rope, the idol. He gets the finds the idol with the twist, um, and the twist of this is a immunity idol, but it is only good for one tribal council unless you want to give up your vote again. If you do give up your vote, it is good until the merge, or if you give up your vote twice, it is good until top 5, like a normal idol. I thought that was a awesome kind of twist and makes you think, okay, where am I at in the game? Is it worth me giving up my reward or my vote again? and kind of adds a new layer to it.
For sure, it does. And I mean, I feel like you're silly not to give up your vote, unless you know you're on the outs. But at that point, you're going to use it anyway. So, um, yeah, I like it. It's not just power; you've got to sacrifice a little bit more for it. Um, I thought it was interesting that they did not have. I know we talked about this earlier, but that they didn't have the wax like Sabaya did. Um, so I thought that was cool. And I don't know why I didn't even think about it, but when they're talking about like sacrificing the vote, I was like, oh, that's a really good twist to the idol. I did not even consider that Sabaya's would be the same way.
I didn't either.
And so we'll talk about that when we get to tribal council, but I did not even think about that until she opened it up. And so kind of I like the way they did that, where it was different enough, but still the same thing to kind of keep me as the audience on my toes. Um, the thing I wasn't sure about, so if you sacrifice your vote, is it twice, or do you have to sacrifice it again once the merge happens?
I don't know if they specified if it had to be after the merge. But I think the way I understood it was sacrifice your vote once, it's good to the merge. If you end up sacrificing your vote twice, then it would be good till top 5.
See, I took it as it's good till the merge if he sacrifices his vote, and then at the merge, it's no longer good unless he sacrifices his vote that first time at the merge, and then it's good until top 5. So, and we may not see that for another couple weeks, but um, I'm curious to see the details of that. That's the piece of Survivor I wish they would let the audience in a little bit more on, or just make it a little clearer. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, I mean, kind of leading up to the immunity challenge. Um, did you have anything else before that?
I don't think so. I was actually really looking forward to the immunity challenge because, again, with how strong Lulu did on the last challenge and then having the fruit and being energized, I thought, all right, they've got this. We're finally see them do well. And they got off to a slow start, but they made up a lot of time and we're right back in it. And then get to the puzzle, and man, they just could not get it together. But I mean, unless I just missed something, nobody was really weak or caused them to lose. They were just gassed, and everybody else just did better than they did. I didn't think they did poorly. They just didn't do as well.
Yeah, it was kind of weird to me. I don't know if because clearly they had the one person that was kind of speaking the up on the pedestal and telling them where to move pieces, which was Emily. Um, and the other two tribes did as well, but I don't feel like the people up on the pedestals were communicating as much as I thought they would. I thought it was more the people on the ground like moving the pieces of like, oh, this needs to go here, this needs to go there. Um, and I noticed this from previous challenges with puzzles or whatever. I feel like Sabaya, as soon as something started going wrong and other teams started getting it quicker, she almost just shut down and was like, ah, like, come on, guys. Like, it almost just seemed like she was shutting down and was kind of giving up in a way. And I don't know if this week it seemed like that to me because they've lost 2 weeks in a row and she was just frustrated and all of that. But I almost got that vibe of like as soon as the other two tribes got pieces going and all, she almost just shut down. I was like, all right, we've lost. But I don't know if that was just me.
No, I got that sense as well, and I'm with you. I don't think the people standing up on the pedestal pointing out the moves, I don't think that was much of an advantage. I didn't really see the benefit of that. I would have almost rather had all four people down moving pieces personally, but whatever, I guess. Um, but yeah, I noticed that as well, and I noticed that last week, but I thought, it's just a one-off. But then again, she did it this week, and it was just like I I didn't really take it as her necessarily giving up, but she just was not motivated by the thought of, oh, I've got to go harder now because they're catching up. It's like, oh well, they're catching up. Like, ugh, it's not good enough, and just almost throwing in the towel a little bit, which I did not like.
Yeah. So obviously, um, Reba and Bello win immunity. Both keep their flint. Have had fire the whole time. Lulu loses again. Don't get the flint. Go back to camp and have to kind of start talking and figure things out. And they clearly showed a lot of frustration and kind of not crying, but like emotions when they lost. And
Yeah, did you catch what Emily said? I thought it was very well said when they were still standing there with Jeff, and because he made a comment about like still, you know, we're on day 7 and you still don't have your flint, and Emily said something along the lines of, as good as it felt to win the reward, this sucks, and watching them go off and celebrate when they have no idea what it's like to go to tribal council and vote out somebody who we've become really good friends with, and you like learn to really care and like love these people even 7 days in. This this doesn't just suck because we lost. Like, we're gonna like ruin somebody's game and like break their heart a little bit, and that that sucks, and they just don't get it. And I thought it was very well said, and in some way I think that'll almost give Lulu an advantage next week whenever they swap tribes a little bit, because they've got a leg up on how tribal council works and how to navigate that and survive. So,
yeah, and I think Lulu is those four. Not that the other tribes aren't close. I think below we don't see the closeness of them quite yet. Where Reba, you've got the four that are fairly close, but the Lulu tribe, whenever you start voting people out, you kind of like have to come together. And I feel like they all worked really well together, even from the beginning. Hannah was obviously week one. She quit, voted out, whatever. Brandon was the clear next choice of just wasn't contributing enough. I thought Emily kind of would be the next to go to a point of she's just kind of on the outs, but um, those four have all like really close. So that kind of family vibe. Don't want to vote somebody out. I thought, like you said, was very well spoken and definitely kind of hit hard. I got a little not emotional, but I was like, "Ah, no, I wanted them to win. Like I didn't want to see them go to tribal again.
I agree. I was really rooting for them, and when they got back to camp, and they talked about this a little bit when Caleb was off. Um, what's it called? When Caleb was off doing
The raid.
the raid. Yeah, gosh. So when Caleb was off doing the raid, they talked about this a little bit, and how they thought he is playing a great game, and he is. And they thought this might be our opportunity if we lose to go after him, and they just went for it. And Sabaya was thinking, hey, as of right now, I still don't have my vote, so I need Emily and Sean to vote Caleb, and we'll get him out, because that, and it was smart on her part because it kind of saves her. Um, and I almost thought she would tell Sean and Caleb to vote Emily, but I think the thought of Caleb being as good as he is was just attractive. But um, I don't know, that whole dynamic. I really thought for a second that they were gonna pull one over on Caleb, and the way that she set that up, the way Sabaya set that up with Caleb, which was, hey, I'm gonna tell Emily that it's you, and you tell Emily that it's me, he got to Caleb before Emily did. And so knowing that, okay, if Emily turns and says, hey, I'm trying to vote him out, he already knows that because I told him that.
Yep.
And it really set her up in a really good position. Um, and then jumping ahead a little bit, when she goes to tribal, she had the brilliant idea of, hey, I've got this wax thing. I'm just going to stick it in the middle of fire and at tribal. And which, like, bold move. I'm sure Survivor production did not think that somebody was going to do that. Like, I thought that was brilliant and ended up building some trust with Emily by sharing that with her, even though I think Emily saw through it and saw that, wait a second, you just told me that you voted, but now you're telling me that you didn't because you had this and everybody else knew about it, but I didn't.
Well, she even Sabaya even said in the tribal, um, I don't have a vote, so like that right there confirmed everything Emily even thought. Um, but kind of going back to the whole voting Caleb out and kind of doing that, trying to get that move going. I think the one thing that really saved Caleb going back to week one when Caleb goes to Emily and says, "Hey, I want to work with you. Want to kind of coach you, work on your perception and your attitude and these things." I think that move saved him this week. Um,
I agree.
if it wasn't for that move week one, I don't think Emily would have gone to him and said that of, hey, they're going to vote you out. Obviously, that's what Sabaya had kind of set up. But I think that helped kind of convince Caleb, okay, she's actually being truthful here. And I don't know. I truly believe that helped save him this week.
Yes, I completely agree. It goes to show you that, like, building trust and not just playing the game, but having, like, building a personal relationship with somebody in the game is incredibly valuable. I know we said that last week with Caleb and Emily, and um, I'm very impressed with him, and it clearly paid off. But what's cool about it is he wasn't doing it for or to advance himself in the game. He was doing it just because, hey, like, hey, I'm looking out for you, kind of a deal. And I thought it was very, very neat. So when they started voting, did you realize that it could have easily been a three-way tie?
I did. And kind of going into tribal, I was thinking, okay, Sabayak doesn't have a vote right now. So Caleb votes Emily like he's supposed to. Sabaya votes Caleb,
I didn't have a vote.
or not Sabaya votes Caleb, but Sean votes Caleb, and then Emily is gonna go vote Sabaya. So it could very well be a three-way tie.
Right.
I think as soon as she put the wax candle in there, and or I don't know if it's a candle, but the wax figure in the fire, she gets the immunity like idol out, and then opens it up whenever she's getting ready to vote. The twist is the same as Austin's of it's only good for one tribal council unless you risk your vote, and it's good till merge and then two vote or whatever, so on and so forth. If it was just a regular immunity idol, she would have been able to vote. I think Caleb would have gone home. But the fact that she decided to say, hey,
Why do you think Caleb would have gone home?
well, I mean, I guess
Because it would have been a 2-2
it
tie
would have been a
then,
2-2 tie, yeah. Um, that is true. I didn't think about that, but that would have changed that obviously.
for sure.
The fact that she said, "Okay, I trust where I'm at. The people are going to vote the way they are. I'm going to risk my vote not vote again, keep my idol for later, and then she ends up going home. I think that those little twists in the game are what Survivor's all about, and I love it.
For sure. Yeah, I did not realize until she started reading that. As soon as she opened up that piece of paper and started reading that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's the same twist." And there's no way she's not there's no way she's going to use her idol right now. She's going to have to risk her vote because she doesn't feel threatened. At no point did anybody let on that they were voting for her. So she didn't feel the need to use the idol. She's definitely going to risk the vote. It's either going to be a three-way tie or Sabaya's going to go home.
And I think that was smart on Emily's part to, as soon as she was told to vote Caleb, not to run to him and be like, "Hey, this is what's happening," and then cause more turmoil. It was a, "Hey, before we go to tribal council, this is what's happening, and I want to let you know this." Waiting till the last minute, I think, was brilliant.
Yeah, and she even said, I know it's late, but here's what's going on. I'm doing this whether you do it or not. So, like, get in or get out kind of thing.
Right.
And if you saw Caleb's face as he was walking out of tribal council, man, he was on top of it.
Yeah, he was on cloud nine.
Yep. Which I hope that does not ruin things with the three of them. The third one being Sean, because I'm sure Sean feels on the outs.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see how that works. To me, I don't know if I was Sean, if I would have a ton of trust in them again, of especially with the whole switching tribes coming up next week. Obviously, he doesn't know that yet, but with that coming up, I'm curious to see where the three of them land. Obviously, two of them are going to land on the same tribe. So, who lands with who? How does that relationship work out? What does Sean go out and tell other people? How is that going to play out? So I think that'll be an interesting and good thing to keep an eye on for sure. Um, but yeah, all in all, I mean, that was a great episode.
Yeah, I agree. Before we kind of close this out, Survivor of the Week for you.
I was honestly trying to think about that. I mean, at the end of the day, I've got to say, I'm torn between Caleb and Emily. I think it could I could go with somebody from Reba or something. There's just not enough with all the action that was going on with Lulu. I had to pick somebody from them. Um, I'm between them two, and I think I'm leaning towards Caleb just because of the fact that he did vote out Sabaya, where they were fairly close at the very beginning. They were kind of the one and two at the very beginning on the tribe. They were the ones that everybody saw as they're going out together and this and that. For him to make that vote to vote out Sabaya, um, I've got to say him for my Survivor of the Week.
For sure. Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I was torn between Emily, Caleb, and then I thought, man, I don't want to keep saying the same person. Let me think of somebody else. And the only other person that came to mind was Dee on Reba. Just how she navigated the whole catching Austin and Drew, but still sticking with that alliance. I thought she played that really well, but as far as biggest moves, best player of the week, I think Caleb hands down the way he navigated the going to Reba and doing all that to how he ended up saving himself and voting out Sabaya. I think it's hands down Caleb. He is playing, in my opinion, I mean, him and maybe Drew are playing the top two best games right now. So
Yeah, I would agree. So, other than that, I didn't have anything else. Did you?
I think that's it. So next week, Tribe Swap should be a very interesting episode, and I'm curious to see how this shakes things up. Like I said before, it'll almost be like starting the game over a little bit because we've only voted out three people. We've still got a lot of players left, and it's going to be an interesting episode.
Yeah, I'm excited for it and excited to see where people land and how those relationships form. I'm kind of expecting next week to be obviously joining together and figuring all of that out, and kind of maybe a strategic episode. But I'm excited for it. So, I think that's going to be a wrap for this week. Hopefully, like you said at the beginning of this episode, hopefully Brandon's back next week and we can kind of go back to normal that way. Obviously missed him this week, and hopefully he gets better soon. So thanks for listening. If you guys would join us again next week.